20 Indian Army personnel, including a commanding officer, were killed in a fierce clash with Chinese troops in the Galwan Valley in eastern Ladakh on Monday night. The biggest military confrontation in over 5 decades, that has significantly escalated the already volatile border standoff in the region. Indian Army on Tuesday confirmed that 20 soldiers lost their lives. Different sources have speculated that at least 43 Chinese soldiers have been seriously injured or killed in the clash. It is the biggest confrontation between the two militaries since the 1967 clashes in Nathu La, when India lost around 80 soldiers while over 300 Chinese army personnel were killed. Token disengagements followed the lieutenant general level talks between India and China that were held on June 6, in a bid to resolve the month-long border standoff in eastern Ladakh. Midweek, the Chinese came back and set up camp on the Indian side. India dismantled the camp, following which a scuffle broke out between the troops of both the sides, injuring several soldiers. The Chinese troops went back only to return in larger numbers over the weekend. Some stone pelting took place on Sunday, June 14th. On Monday, June 15th evening, clashes broke out on a ridge line with a high drop towards the Galwan River. The clashes escalated rapidly and according to sources, many Indian soldiers fell into the river during the scuffle. After India and China had agreed that Chinese troops would further disengage and return to their territory in Ladakh's Galwan Valley on June 6, talks between major generals of both sides were supposed to take place on June 16. As the PLA troops didn't move back, an unarmed patrol team of the Indian Army led by a colonel of 16 Bihar Regiment set out to hold a discussion with the Chinese side. The Chinese refused to move back and deliberately aggravated the situation. They started to attack the Indian delegation with boulders, rocks wrapped with barbed wire and wooden log with nails around them. The Indian side also retaliated. After the first hit by the Chinese troops, the commanding officer was grievously injured. Indian troops took the commanding officer and an injured soldier back, leaving behind some injured soldiers, who were taken captive immediately by the Chinese side. After nearly 40 minutes, the same unit, led by a major, went back to that particular area and raided again. Once they reached the site, things escalated even further. The Indian troops assaulted the Chinese post with brutal strength and seriously injured nearly 55 to 56 Chinese soldiers. Many casualties were inflicted at this point. Sources said there were many fatalities on the Chinese side, but there was no confirmation on the exact number. Hand-to-hand fighting continued late into the night. Stones and metal clubs with barbed wire were heavily used, due to which many suffered head injuries. The clash went on for over 3 hours. Sources said fighting stopped well after midnight while many injured succumbed by morning. The military's superpowers have been arguing for decades over territory in the high-altitude, largely uninhabited region. Their armies come face to face at many points along the 2,100-mile shared border. The confrontation came after tensions bubbled up in recent months over a new road India built in Ladakh, along the line of actual control which divides the sides. That angered China, which deployed troops and built infrastructure of its own in disputed territory, bringing the two sides' forces in closer proximity and heightening the risk of clashes. Both sides see the area as strategically important, economically and militarily. If neither gives way, the standoff could have destabilizing consequences for the region. In recent days, army generals from India and China have been involved in talks aimed at resolving the border row. If they are not successful, there is a risk of escalation between two rivals who happen to be the world's most populous countries and have nuclear weapons.